Study Session 4, Group Development. Introduction. In this study session, we will examine how a group is formed. We will also explain the stages of group membership. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to 1. Describe how a group is formed. 2. Highlight the stages of group membership. Initial development of group. The process of establishing and conducting groups varies significantly on the type of group and the specific purposes to be achieved. Zastro 2001. However, for a group to reach its maximum potential, there are common elements to be addressed prior to establishing the group. Hence, the following elements must be given careful consideration, namely, group objectives, size, status, that is, open-ended or closed-ended, and duration. Elements of group development. Determining objectives. Careful consideration must be given to the objectives of a group being formed in order to select effective members. For instance, problem-solving groups often require the expertise of professionals in other disciplines whose skills and knowledge directly contribute to the accomplishment of group goals. They may have background, training, and perceptions that differ from those of the social worker. Though this approach produces a group with a wealth of expertise, it creates additional demands on the leader. Educational groups, on the other hand, are usually composed of members who share a common interest in a particular area, such as child-rearing skills. Individuals with similar needs join an educational group primarily to gain rather than dispense information. This tends to make leadership easier. It is essential that the objectives or purposes of each group be established at the beginning, as they have significant impact on the process of membership, selection, and other aspects of functioning. Size. The size of a group affects members' satisfactions, interactions, and amount of output per member. Although smaller groups are generally rated more favorably, larger groups are often more successful in resolving complex problems. Despite the fact that members in larger groups experience more stress and greater communication difficulties, they usually bring a greater number of problem-solving skills and resources to the groups as a whole. In his research on group size, Slater 1938 found that groups of 5 persons were considered most satisfactory by members themselves and most effective in dealing with an individual talk involving the collection and exchange of information about a situation. It is also the most effective in coordination, analysis, and evaluation of this information and a group decision regarding the appropriate administrative action to be taken. In groups of more than 5, members were inhibited from expressing their ideas through fear of alienating one another and thereby destroying the group. They also participated less often. Groups with an even number of members tend to have higher rates of disagreement and antagonism than those with odd numbers because of the possibility of dividing the groups into 2 equal subdivisions. However, a group should be large enough to allow members to speak freely without being inhibited, and small enough to permit a moderate level of intimacy and involvement. Open-ended and closed-ended groups. Another consideration before establishing a group is to determine whether the group will be open-ended, that is, which allows new members to be added as old members leave, or closed-ended, that is, which allows old members to remain constant until termination. Open-ended groups provide a measure of synergism through the addition of new members who may provide a different viewpoint as they join the group. It should be noted here that constant change in membership may inhibit openness and detract from the sense of trust needed before certain subjects are broached. A closed-ended group can often function more effectively as it has a relatively constant population and often operates with a specified time frame. In closed-ended group, there is always premature loss of members, which can affect the effectiveness of the group. The group leader must deal with members' termination in both groups and plan for these eventually. Duration. The duration of a group has two related components, namely the number of sessions and the length of each session. Many groups meet for 1 to 2 hours, once or twice a week, for a specified number of weeks. Meeting for 1 to 2 hours tends to optimize productive activity and behaviors. Any meetings short of these do not allow sufficient time to thoroughly discuss the issues that are raised. However, any meeting that lasts longer than 3 hours, members tend to become drowsy, frustrated, and unable to concentrate. Stages of group development. The steps involved in planning and implementing educational, therapeutic, and socialization groups are similar to the procedures followed by social workers who deal with individual clients. The stages are intake, selection of members, assessment and planning, group development and planning, group development and intervention, and evaluation and termination. Intake. This is a stage in which the present concerns and needs of prospective members are identified. It is also a stage where judgment is made concerning how some or all members could benefit from a group approach. Agreement is often formulated at this stage between the members of the group and the group leader about tentative group goals. The stage can also be called the contact stage, as both the leaders and the members make a commitment to pursue the situation to the next step. Membership selection. This is a stage where members are selected into the group based on age, sex, level of education, value, interest, contribution to the group, and other characteristics. Individuals most likely to benefit from a group should be selected as members. Selecting groups members require attention to both descriptive and behavioral factors as indicated above. Assessment and planning. This is a stage where a more in-depth assessment and statement of goals and plans for action is made. Goals should be time-limited, e.g. 1 month, 1 year, 5 years, etc., with a reasonable chance of attainment. The leaders at this stage should ensure that all goals are clearly stated for easy evaluation in the future. A clearly stated goal eliminates hidden agendas. Group development and intervention. This is a stage where the leaders of the group determine how the group will be formed. Different models of group development have evolved. 3 of such models are briefly discussed here, namely the Garland, Jones, and Colony model, the Tuckman model, and the Ballet model. Garland, Jones, and Colony model. The model was developed by Garland et al. 1965. The model identifies 5 stages of development in social work groups. By describing and understanding the various kinds of developmental problems in groups, leaders can more effectively anticipate and respond to the reactions of group members. The model appears particularly applicable to socialization, therapeutic, and encounter groups. However, it is less applicable to self-help, the problem-solving, decision-making, educational and recreational or skills groups. Emotional closeness among members is the central focus of the model. This is reflected in struggles that occur at the 5 stages of the model, as described below. 1. Pre-affiliation. This is the first stage, in which members are ambivalent about joining the group, and interaction is guarded. At this stage, members test out, often through approach and avoidance behavior, whether they really want to belong. During this stage, the leader tries to make the group appear as attractive as possible by allowing and supporting distance, gently inviting trust, facilitating exploration of the physical and psychological milieu, and by providing activities if necessary and initiating group structure. This stage ends gradually as members begin to feel safe and comfortable with the group. 2. Power and control. The second stage is the power and control stage. At this stage, the character of the group begins to emerge. Patterns of communication, alliances, and subgroups begin to develop. Individuals assume certain roles and responsibilities, establish norms and methods for handling group tasks, and begin to ask questions. Although these processes are necessary to conduct meetings, they also lead to a power struggle in which each member attempts to gain greater control over the gratifications and rewards to be received from the group. At this point, members realize that the group is becoming important to them. The stage is transitional with certain issues requiring resolution. For instance, the issue as to whether or not the leader has primary control, the limit of the power of the group and of the leader, and to what extent the leader can use his power surfaces. During this struggle, the leader has to help members understand the nature of the struggle. 3. Intimacy. The third stage is the intimacy stage. At this stage, the likes and dislikes of intimate relationships are expressed. The groups become more like a family, with sibling rivalry exhibited, and with the leader sometimes referred to as a parent. Feelings are more openly expressed and discussed, and the group is viewed as a place where growth and change take place. Individuals feel free to examine and make efforts to change personal attitudes, concerns, and problems, and there is a feeling of oneness or cohesiveness. 4. Differentiation. During this stage, members are freer to experiment with new and alternative behavioral patterns because they recognize individual rights and needs, and they communicate more effectively. Leadership is more evenly shared, roles are more functional, and the organization itself is more efficient. At this stage, power problems are now minimal, and decisions are made and carried out on a less emotional and more objective basis. 5. Separation. It is the final stage of this model. It is a stage in which the group objectives have been achieved, and members have learned new behavioral patterns to enable them move on to other social experiences. Termination is not always easily accomplished, as members may be reluctant to move on and may display regressive behavior to prolong the existence of the group. Hence, members may express anger or may psychologically deny that termination is approaching. At this stage, the leader, that is the social worker, can facilitate separation by willing to let go, concentration on group, and individual mobility, help with the expression of ambivalence about termination, and recognition of the progress that has been made as his major task. Acceptance of termination is facilitated by active guidance of members as individuals to other ongoing sources of support and assistance. Tuckman model. Tuckman, 1965, identified 5 predictable developmental stages. These are forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. Each stage is briefly described below. 1. Forming. This is the first stage of group development as given by Tuckman. At this stage, members become oriented towards each other, work on being accepted, and learn more about the group. This stage is marked by a period of uncertainty in which members try to determine their places in the group and learn the group rules and procedures. 2. Storming. This is the stage in which conflicts begin to rise as members resist the influence of the group and rebel against accomplishing their task. It is a stage when members confront their various differences, and management of conflict often becomes the focus of attention. 3. Norming. At this stage, the group establishes cohesiveness and commitment. In the process, the members discover new ways to work together. Norms are also set for appropriate behavior. 4. Performing. This is a stage in which the group works as a unit to achieve group goals. Members develop proficiency in achieving goals and become more flexible in their patterns of working together. 5. Adjourning. This is a stage in which the group disbands. The feelings that members experience are similar to those in the separation stage in Garland's model. Ballet's model. The 2 models described above are sequential stage models, as both specify sequential stages of group development. Ballet's 1965 developed a recurring phase model. He asserted that groups continue to seek equilibrium between task-oriented work and emotional expressions in order to build relationships among group members. He also asserted that groups tend to oscillate between these 2 concerns. Sometimes, a group focuses on identifying and performing the tasks that will lead to achievement of its goals, and at other times, the group focuses on building the morale and improving the social emotional atmosphere of the group. The first 2 models, sequential stage perspectives, and the third model, the recurring phase perspective, are useful or helpful in understanding group development. The sequential stage perspective assumes that group moves more through various stages while dealing with a series of basic themes that surface when they are relevant to the group's work. The recurring phase perspective assumes that the issues underlying the basic themes are never completely resolved and tend to recur later. Evaluation and termination. Evaluation of the group is not necessarily a last thing to be done. It is an ongoing process. The decision to terminate a group may be based on the accomplishment of group or individual goals, the expiration of a predetermined period of time, the failure of the group to achieve desired ends, the leader of the group relocating, or a shortage of funds to keep the group going. It should be noted here that the termination of a group always brings about the same reactions that characterize the termination of other significant relationships, including the feeling of being rejected. Hence, the group leader, e.g. social worker, must be aware of these potential feelings and help the group members terminate with a minimum of difficulty. Study session summary. In this study session, we discussed that the process of establishing and conducting a group varies significantly on the type of group and the specific purposes to be achieved. Prior to the establishment of groups, we noted that the following elements must be considered, namely, the objective of establishing the group, size of the group, status of the group, and duration of the group. We explained that group development is in stages. Hence, the following steps have to be followed while establishing a group. These are intake, selection of members, assessment and planning, group development and intervention, as well as evaluation and termination. End of study session 4.